Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name's George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. We are joined today by Full Metal Jacket Adam Direen. Adam, you've shaved your beard. You look like you're droning civilians in Pakistan from a bunker in Utah. That's how clean shaven you look right now.
Well, George, how do you know I'm not doing that?
That's an excellent question. I don't.
Well, we can see you, and I've been to your house, and I recognize that backdrop. So unless this is some amazing, fucking The Mandalorian, Unreal Engine 4, camera tracking, you've designed a really realistic backdrop that you can manipulate in real time.
It's a thing called a PlayStation controller, and you can just get a hold of the drone, and you just guide it in and...
Yeah, I watched Eagle Eye. I understand all of the complicated drone politics that exist now. I watched a movie about it, so...
Yeah. Would you wonder, would they actually do that?
It's a bunker in Utah, and they are on a fucking...
I mean the bunker. I know that the bunkers exist and they're being remote controlled and all that sort of stuff. But I'm wondering, this is my crazy is this how they recruit people thing? Would they remap the control scheme to something like an Xbox controller, just so that they can be just recruiting COD nerds?
No, it's not quite that gamified, but it's close. They're on a HOTAS or something, like a joystick controller-y type device.
I was just wondering, I could imagine that being a plot of something, of that they just go, well, this person's the best drone operator we've ever seen, but they just won't understand the crazy setup. It's what if we just remap it to a PlayStation? It's that's how I know how to play, man.
Wasn't that a movie where he's playing a video game, but it's actually controlling a thing in real life?
Toy Soldiers? Ender's Game as well, but Toy Soldiers or something like that, or the Robin Williams eccentric toy maker, and then they get rid of proper toys and go all electronic, and it turns out they're all controlling real military vessels and stuff.
No,
but also Ender's Game. It's the twist of Ender's Game, so thanks, Adam.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's destroyed that entire movie. It wasn't that good.
It was a book first, mate.
Boys, more importantly, grand finals yesterday, and
the boys.
More importantly than the military-industrial complex.
No, don't worry about it. The footy was on yesterday, Tom. No one wants to hear about corruption in the industrial military complex.
He's right.
People want to hear about Dustin Martin winning another Norm Smith medal because, Dusty. Meanwhile,
I assume these are real people you're talking about.
They're real people.
I have no
Dusty
frame of reference.
It's a name I recognise because I caught the last 10, 15 minutes of the match or something yesterday because my partner goes for the Cats. So she was like, oh, I hear it's a pretty close game. And we tuned in when it was a close game. And then very soon it was not a close game. And she was miserable. And I was like, okay.
Yes. It was a bit of a shit show. So that was yesterday. And so now we can put that to bed. We can leave the football in one corner. We can brick it up and never talk about it again. And instead talk about...
That's an average Tuesday for me.
Hey, you know what, Adam? For you, done. I'll put my football shenanigans aside just this once so we can do the podcast.
Thanks,
I will refrain from going on about the footy.
Oh, blah, blah, blah. Old Tom Davidson Heath yammering on about the fucking football. Will he ever shut up about it? God knows.
My God, it's just they just don't respect the game, George, anymore. But no, don't get me started. We're doing this for Adam.
The boys gave 110%, but couldn't quite get there in the end.
Even though it's statistically impossible to give more than 100%. That's the definition of maximum.
They gave 100. They went over their limit. They pushed past their limit.
It's not possible because then there would be the new limit that they have then, the actual correct limit that they have then attained.
Okay.
Unless your metric of what 100% is just a previous, if it's a previous example, they put in this much effort in their last game, and in this new game, they put 10% more effort than the last one. So they gave 110% worth of last game's effort.
Mm-hmm. No, I think we can break this game.
Is that anything?
Over.
Is this good? 10 more minutes?
Content? Isn't this great content? Now, look, it's much more interesting, boys. Talk about...
Is this anything? Is this anything? Yeah. I don't know why that broke me. Is this something? So what else is in the news? What's in the news, huh?
Going to start off with something nice and fluffy. Obviously, coronavirus is still a thing.
So fluffy.
If you watch the news. And,
Fluffy in that the crowns on the coronavirus, the actual bits on the virus for the Halloween edition have been made into tiny little pumpkins.
Yes.
So it's just sort of fluffy, little fuzzy, little friendly coronavirus.
Yeah,
Nice.
Just so you want to go out and trick or treat and treat here's some coronavirus.
Oh, gotcha. We've got it in a spray bottle, just like some anthrax.
I was going to say, when you queued it up like that, both the trick and the treat are coronavirus.
Restrictions weren't eased today because there's an outbreak in the north of Victoria.
The north.
There was a protest the other day where some horses were hit with a flagpole. Poor horsies.
Okay, the horse didn't do it. I understand you're upset about the lockdown and 5G and Dictator Dan and all this other stuff, but the horse is just a horse. The horse had no part in crafting lockdown policy. They were calling the horse racist, saying it was a racist horse, and the horse is just.
But George, if the horse is there trying to trample you, what are you going to do? Are you just going to let it trample you, or are you going to hit it with a flagpole?
But the horse, neither. Is there a third option?
When you can back away and go home and
just go home and just play God of War on your PlayStation 4, which was on special very recently at JB Hi-Fi for $19. Not a paid spot, just a true thing that happened, and that's why I'm playing God of War now. So.
But look, we all feel for the horses. They get roped into these protests. I mean, they are bred and designed to literally go galloping into crowds and break them up.
What are these killer horses that you're talking about? These 4 horsemen of the apocalypse horses that fucking Adam do. These are nice little fluffy boys, okay? You leave them alone, Adam. They're 400 kilos, but they're just good boys, okay? I don't it's funny that I'm not don't hit police officers. Obviously, don't hit police officers as well. They're human beings. But the horse is completely innocent. The horse is just some child that's wandered. It's a 400 kilo child that people are riding into battle. The horse had nothing to do with it, is all I'm saying.
The horse was forced as well.
The horse was forced, of course.
Of course. And
is this something?
This is content, right? Anything is content if you want it to be, George.
Thank you. Yes, Kim Kardashian taught us all that.
Interesting this week, there's some news that broke where in hotel quarantine, another little scandal to tack on to the end of the hotel quarantine saga. You can just put it on at the end, a little addendum.
Just a little pin the HIV on the donkey.
Yeah. So turns out they were using the same blood testing machines on multiple people, which is a no-no.
This story broke sort of middle of the week. I haven't seen too much follow-up on it yet, so I'm hoping that means that everything's fine and no one's fucked, because it's pretty damning. Beyond all the stuff going on with hotel quarantine of, allegedly horny security guards and who knew what and who has to be thrown under the bus when, and all that sort of stuff going on. It came out that more than 200 people who went through some of the hotel quarantines.
Should we just explain very briefly what the hotel quarantine system is and has been for people who are not familiar?
I mean, sure. Go for it.
Just that, so basically returning travellers and people that have come from other states and things like that have been forced as part of Victoria's policy to quarantine in a hotel for 2 weeks before being allowed into the wider sort of community. The idea being to stop, borders, transmission across borders and things like that, or internationally or whatnot. And obviously there was, some consternation several months ago about the quality, the efficaciousness of the security guards, which were private contractors.
That's sort of been the big scandal, the use of private contractors to be monitoring or enforcing the quarantine, who weren't doing that well, and that potentially caused, I believe actually did cause the second wave, in that a family who was quarantining who tested positive, thanks to those lax measures, that passed on to security, and the security people aren't obviously bound by the quarantine. They would go home, and
I remember reading somewhere that it was thought to have caused 90% of the cases in
Yeah.
Victoria's second wave.
It was something quite large. So that's
not
where,
great.
that's been the big point of contention with that is then, so who knew that they were swapping over to private security and who didn't vet?
Who made the call, Tom?
Who made the call? And everyone says, well, Bob made the call. And everyone's like, well, let's fire Bob. And Bob's like, I don't remember doing any of this, but I'm pretty sure Ted had something to do with it. And Ted's like, don't look at me, man. Steve's fault. And they're all just
And
pointing
Steve's
fingers.
like, no hablo inglés. I don't even know what's going on, bro.
Yeah. But so to add to that, while people were in hotel quarantine, they were using blood glucose test devices. They were taking blood samples because it was also quite early in the process of understanding the virus. So I guess they were trying to get any kind of information that they had, because normally it's not a blood test that you use to test for coronavirus. It's, they scramble your brain with a
nasal
stick
swab.
with
a stick, with a cotton swab.
Yeah,
to
they
be clear.
just shove a thing into your brain.
They're
and
not.
just,
it's
out.
not Van Helsing sticking a fucking stake into your head.
All that sort of stuff. But it turns out that during a period of about the 29th of March to the 20th of August, so while using these devices involve just like a pinprick into the fingertip, just taking a little bit of blood.
Yeah,
and while they
the sort of stuff that a diabetic would use, where you
so like
pick
measuring insulin and
a little
stuff like that.
pinprick, you get a bit of like a droplet of blood going, and then you sort of swab that and test that.
Yeah,
but obviously,
and so
if you're
people, well, that's the thing, because it was like, because people were saying like, what did they just use? Did they just go down a line of people? It was like they had a fresh needle for every person,
so it rotates.
But they still use the same housing.
So it's like a little sort of needle in a thing, and then every time you use it, it switches to a fresh needle. But because it's in the same, as you say, the same housing, the blood could potentially, like generally the way people use these devices is if you're a diabetic and you're using it on yourself all the time, so you're not going to contaminate yourself. It's not a big deal. But using that needle with this machine, and then even using a fresh needle with someone else, there is the potential
there's the potential for cross-contamination.
Right.
And so what they're now doing is they're getting in contact with all the people that they know were tested with these devices, during that period, just to make sure that maybe they don't have hepatitis B, C, or HIV.
Cool.
It's pretty bad. I mean, on top of all that's gone fucking wrong with this, if it's then just, oh, by the way, maybe a couple hundred people got HIV who wouldn't have contracted it otherwise.
Has your 2020 been absolutely cooked fucking thus far? Well, I've got some news for you. Turns out the government accidentally gave you AIDS.
Yes.
Great.
So
that's great.
And that's the thing, though. I saw this being reported. This is from The Guardian, where I read this middle of the week, but I haven't seen like a major development follow-up from this. So I don't know if more has come about as a result. So I haven't seen further headlines of government gives HIV to everybody.
As a rule, that's a headline. That's generally at least one news cycle that you'll get out of a story like that. Certainly the Murdoch press would have made sure that had come to all of our attention if that was the case. So
if you're the guy who wrote that article and gets it on the front page, you've got it made.
I'm sure Sky News has probably been screaming about it in their own little ecosystem, own little noise chamber, but I haven't seen anyone sharing it. So,
but it's just an extra layer of awfulness in this aspect of the Victorian government's response to coronavirus.
I mean, it is only a small percentage. It's like 200 people.
But still, like, if it comes out that in the quarantine facility, 200 people catch not the thing we're quarantining from, but maybe HIV.
Yeah, it's not
and
good.
Hep C and Hep B, not to downplay Hep C and Hep B, they're also really bad. Like, this is really fucked.
Yeah, I don't want any of the Heps. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's not ideal. Certainly not a great situation for the Victorian government.
A very damning extra layer to once the Labor state government gets their act together and decides whose fault this actually is.
Yeah,
an extra nail in the coffin for who.
I still kind of
surely
of the opinion that it's not anyone's specific.
No. But I know that they keep going. It's
sort of
someone's fault. No, it's that person's fault, and it's more everyone says, I don't remember anything that happened, but that guy does, and
Quick, Terry, we need you to fall on your sword. Terry's like, oh fuck, here we go again.
Not again. Not again. Yeah, look, it is disappointing, as you say, Tom. I think like hopefully given the numbers of people, given the small, hopefully small risk of what's transpired, like hopefully no one should come down with anything. But yeah, it is another. It's not great. It's not a great.
It's very bad.
Not a great look.
To be in a quarantine situation, like to be like I won't say facility. It's a hotel. It's not like you're in a lab. But to be a quarantine facility potentially exposing you to some other very serious illnesses. That's it's kind of the opposite of what you want. Like rule one of quarantine is don't catch stuff.
Don't
right,
and don't give anything to the people that you've got in quarantine. That's exactly. A big one as well.
Like people in the quarantine don't get or pass on the thing that you're quarantining against, and preferably other stuff. So that's pretty bad, and hopefully it's just that's like, wow, that was a colossal fuck up, but thankfully everyone's okay kind of situation, rather than 200 people now have HIV.
Cross your fingers, guys. Cross them real hard.
Yeah.
But look, there is hope. There is hope. The wonderful process that we have in Australia, Senate estimates, often gets to the bottom of dodgy dealings and corruption and government ineptitude. And Senate estimates is it's currently rolling along at the moment. There's been some juicy details which have come out of Senate estimates, which is really exciting. Everyone just turns on the ABC 24 and they live stream it. It's just like watching the football.
What is this? Is it just like Corruptober? Like, what is happening in Australian politics that, like, it just seems like 'tis the season for ICAC hearings? Like, politicians across the land be wetting their bowels. Like,
I think, as you said before the show, it's literally just, it's always been corrupt. But then Senate estimates rolls around or whatever it may be. And it's like, then we find out about it. So this is the season when we find out about it. This is the truth.
There was the ICAC in New South Wales recently. There was obviously Senate estimates hearings that we're going to dive into. There was something else recently where we're talking about government corruption. It's just not been a great year. 2020, bottom 10 years in my life, I reckon.
Well, actually, technically speaking, the worst year on record. Let me find this out for you.
What's the metric? I was going to say, based on what?
So the worst year on record, which people tend to agree as being the worst year on record, is the year 536.
Oh, okay. That was a banger.
Real banger.
Is that when Vesuvius erupted?
Not Vesuvius.
No? I thought it would be year 0 because they killed our Lord and Savior, surely.
So it was 0 when he was born?
Right, so the year 32 then? 33?
Wait, no, actually did they kill him
after death?
0 or was he born?
Who are you talking about?
Jesus, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
No, it's nothing to do with it. It's AD, 536 AD.
We're saying when obviously I'm an ardent atheist, so this is a huge joke. But
like,
when was Christ? Yeah, was 0
0 is
the day of Christ's death? Was like day 0, fucking 000.
So Christ is born is AD.
BC is before Christ. AD is after death.
Anno Domini.
No, it's not after death. It's after Anno Domini, which
Anno Domini.
It's after he was born.
Right. So the day he was born was the day.
Yeah. So he was killed in like 33 or something.
That was a bad year.
Jesus? I don't know.
Anyway, glad we got that sorted out, guys.
No, I honestly never thought about it.
It's great. It's a real theologian podcast, real theosophical society that we got here. I
was just going to do a quick aside about the worst year on record.
Please tell us.
Why was it the worst year on record?
Okay, so there was a volcanic eruption in Iceland, which
there you go.
Basically poisoned the atmosphere for about 2 years, which covered it in
the whole atmosphere,
literally
like
everything.
The world atmosphere.
The whole of Europe was covered in like a weird haze. So the sun didn't like go as bright. Those years were like abnormally cold. Crops failed. People died, starved. There are records of this in Roman, what they call it, like testimonies or records, scrolls, or whatever the fuck they wrote stuff down. And the other side of it is one of the, not first instances, but one of the first recordings of the bubonic plague broke out as well at the end of that period, which killed off hundreds of thousands of people. So
that was a bad year.
A bunch of other.
That's a pretty shit year.
That's a bad year.
was a pretty bad year.
And they didn't even have Netflix.
I didn't even have Netflix.
So
No, they didn't.
or insulin, or penicillin, or hygiene.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or baths. Well, I guess they had baths, but they just weren't very good.
Or refrigeration. Just any years before, like, I want to say 2012 weren't that good. Just everything
How did we survive in 2009? I was drunk the entire time.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that keeps you warm, or at least it makes you think you are.
Yeah, 2009, it was a bad time. I was on ADSL 2. It was horrendous.
Oh, God, remember ADSL? Let's not get too
Broadband?
sidetracked.
Low-speed broadband? Oh, that stank.
Senate Estimates Committee.
Senate estimates.
Estimates Committees. Let's have a listen to that. So, what the Senate Environment and Communications Legislation Committee have been quizzing the Australia Post chair recently. Turns out this is the same lady, by the way.
And the chair had someone in it, presumably.
The chair did have someone in it.
Good.
Yes. They usually do.
This is the same lady that basically helped Pauline Hanson disseminate all her marketing material throughout the lockdown tower.
Right, by marketing material, you mean stubby holders.
Yeah, stubby holders to all the people that were locked down in Melbourne.
That's
a story you can listen to on our podcast from several episodes ago. Probably more than that.
Good luck.
Anyway, so it turns out she was part of this thing where they gave all their Australia Post gave all their senior executives some watches as a nice thank you present.
Just like maybe like a nice, like a Tissot or something like that. Do you reckon?
Maybe
just like a Swatch watch. Nicely done. You rock. And then just like a watch with a rock on it or something.
Yeah, a little bit nicer than that.
A bit high end. Okay.
High end. Yeah, so it's a Cartier.
Cartier. Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
And look,
is that a nice watch? I don't.
Cartier is nice. It's nice.
On a scale of 1 to Rolex,
it's like it's an 8.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Cartier's up there.
And so the watches given, and they're all different prices, given to various top executives that are members of the Australia Post organisation. Total nearly $20,000.
$20,000 worth of watches. Okay. Man, it would suck to be the person who gets the cheapest one out of that.
Well, someone only got one that was 3,800.
Only.
One of them was worth 7,000. So I mean, I'd be a little bit sort of. Yeah, I mean, if you got
like when you can buy nearly 2 of the hated person's watches for the cost of the liked person's watches. It's a little, it's a little.
If anything,
tricky.
I feel bad for Cheryl for only getting a $3,500 watch. Really,
Cheryl
on the taxpayer dime.
It just means you're really undervalued in your job. Clearly,
I mean, in terms of corruption, this is, I guess, a drop in the ocean. It's $20,000, but still.
Yeah, but but Adam, the point is not to all corruption is bad. It should be like, it's just a snifter of corruption at Christmas.
Yeah,
a little bit of corruption.
Just a little bit of cheeky corruption. We've all done it.
Who amongst us hasn't bought, let he who has not bought tens of thousands of dollars worth of watches on the taxpayer dime, let him cast the first stone. Who amongst us hasn't bought tens of thousands of dollars worth of watches for friends? We've got some video from the Senate Estimates Committee if you guys would like to hear it with your ears.
I'm sure it's riveting. Let's watch it.
It's kind of fun.
4 people got Cartier. Do you remember the brand, the type? There was a Cartier tank. What was it?
I don't recall. I didn't actually purchase them. They were organised through my office on behalf of the chair and I.
Okay, and was that purchased on the corporate credit card in the name of the office of the CEO?
I don't recall, Senator. I'm happy to take it on notice.
Well, does Mr. Boys know?
Unfortunately, Senator, I'm not aware either.
Yeah, it turns out as in the case with all Senate estimates hearings, nobody remembers a fucking thing about anything. It's just we've got a case of critical fucking amnesiacs. We've got that chick from Lost from Mulholland Drive is the one running all of the government agencies, as it turns out. So nobody fucking remembers anything. I see nothing.
So Australia Post has paid more than 97 million in bonuses to its workers over the past year, with those in senior positions getting the majority of cash. So,
and I've got no problem with bonuses. Like, I work in sales, by the way. Like, as long as it's prescriptive, like as long as it's prescribed, you do X, Y, Z, you get this, and that's part of the agreement, and it's legit. Like, I have no problem with compensation schemes that allow for additional performance being rewarded. But, like, just whacking a couple of Cartier watches on the company credit card because someone did good, like, and it's not part of their fucking... it's just those... It's one of those things where it's like, this is like classic rich people not thinking about
how things look.
Yeah.
How, like, it's just like you are so wealthy and so privileged that it didn't even occur to you that, like, whacking a Cartier watch, several Cartier watches on the credit card might look a certain way and might be indeed corruption. Like, it's just like you are so divorced from the reality of, like, the person earning, like, 40, 50 grand a year who's just, like, you know, getting by, that you're so divorced from that you just, like, have no frame of reference for, like, what real people go through anymore. Like, you're just off the planet, basically.
So in the classic, the scale of how this thing goes. So in that video we just watched, I don't recall. Okay, and she's obviously...
Step one, I don't recall.
Step one, don't recall. Step two, I work with the inquiry.
Yeah,
I'll
she
look
took
into
it on
that.
notice.
I'll take it on notice.
Yeah, I'll take it on notice. I welcome the inquiry.
Okay, we should write these down.
Yeah. Step three, stand down. She's now stood down. She has stood down.
Oh, see, well, you actually missed steps. Step three is I have full confidence in the cabinet and I refuse to step down. I've done nothing wrong. Step four is stepping down.
But because she's actually a public servant, not a politician, she just goes straight to step four. So step three, step four.
That's all right. I'm sure she'll be. I'm sure she'll be fine. I don't think she'll be.
While the investigation's taking place, though, so she may well step.
Oh, okay. So she'll step back up. I'm sure the woman earning 27 grand a week will be fine. I think she'll be fine, no matter what happens.
Now, we said before, George, that this was just...
That's not an exaggeration, by the way. 27 grand a week is her salary. Yeah. That's a real number.
But she gets results, George.
Does she?
She gets results.
The results are, here is my receipt for a Cartier watch.
I mean, the post gets delivered, but I'd say it's the posties that are getting that result.
Well, look, I mean, Australia Post, there is a bit of a story.
And also the warehouse sorters and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, the Australia Post, 10 years ago, was hemorrhaging money. Under their previous...
He was getting paid like $10 million a year, the last guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he managed to turn around the business to a point where it was actually profitable. And I think that's partly due to the rise in online packages and deliveries. But they pivoted the business and changed the fee structure and did a bunch of other things.
Certainly good work has been done. I questioned the extent to which any business, private or public, should be paying its CEO $10 million a year. You know, when you're talking orders of magnitude, you know, the lowest... I remember hearing some statistic where it was like the average CEO used to get paid 17 times the salary of their lowest worker, okay, in America in the 70s. Yeah. And recently it's high as like multiples of like 250 times the average salary of the regular worker. And there comes a point where it's like, it just becomes a bit grotesque. And I'm not for a maximum wage, I understand necessarily, although, you know, I think there's some merit to that discussion. But there comes a point where it's like the actual value that you bring to an organization is not in excess of $10 million a year. You're not working to someone who's earning $27,000 a week out of the public purse is not working 27 times as hard as the person who's on the floor sorting mail. Like, you're just not.
But you might do have to go to Senate estimates and confront
and eat shit. So that's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like there's this weird division of like where the labor, the doing, as you say, Tom, the people doing the work of delivering the mail are not really valued that much in this equation. And like, not to get all means of production-y on you, but like These are the people who are doing the work of delivering the mail. That's what the post office is delivering the mail. Yes, you can build systems and you can do things more efficiently and turn the organization around, but I'm sure that is the cumulative effort of like hundreds or thousands of people's work, not just like one fucking genius at the top that like, you know, is a fucking rock star and saved the whole thing single-handedly. That's just not how big organizations work. So to the extent that this person's contribution is actually worth $27,000 a week, I would be dubious.
Leadership's important, but I think more if we're going to be dishing out bonuses at the end of each year, that maybe considering the people, especially in a year like this year, who are exposing themselves to a pandemic to make sure that society doesn't crumble. I don't know if my get shit delivered now.
I don't know if my postie deserves a Cartier watch, but you should give him a Swatch watch. You could give him a little something, a little Mickey Mouse hands, a little Swiss watch.
Just go to the Victoria Market and support local business. Pick something up from there. You know,
just like 5,000 of them. Just go to Victoria Market and be just like, oh, this looks nice. Can I have 50,000 of these for all of the postal workers across Australia? Oh, that's a bulk order. Do I get a special price on that?
So $20,000. That's our metric. We'll talk. I'm going to use the metric metaphor because we were talking about 110% before with football and everything else. So we're going to go from 20,000 to now 118,000.
Okay.
Ooh. So we're going to go
like
up a little
418% maximum corruption.
It is. Now, this investigation is still ongoing.
You need to check that, man.
I don't know. I studied performing arts. I didn't study maths.
That's like a 500% increase, nearly.
Attaboy.
Just quickly, this wasn't in the rundown, but it's related.
Fuck it. We'll do it live.
If you were to pick an organisation that you would think would be staunchly anti-corruption and enforcement and very by the book. If you were to pick one, which one would you pick in the Australian institution list at a federal level?
Oh, so it's a public, public, not public service kind of company.
Yeah, or like they're a large organisation dealing in the financial securities sector. Shall we put it that way, or financial?
ASIC or Austrac or one of those.
Yeah, one of those ones. Yeah, so that's the ASIC Chair. Just he's the one we're talking about. He received.
Oh boy!
Basically, what doesn't mean received, but the organisation ASIC, or therefore they're the corporate watchdog, if you will, of Australia. You've got to register your ACN number, your Australian company number with ASIC. They're the guys that sort of monitor that. The organisation paid more than $118,000 for him to receive personal tax advice. So most people, when they do their tax, probably just go to My Tax in their MyGov account and just go, just a couple of deductions and click.
Maybe ask the live text chat some weird specifics, and they go, well, we can't actually help you with that. You go, what can you help me with? The tax chat person.
And they say, pay me $118,000 and you'll find out.
Exactly. And that's how we end up at this. No, not really. Basically, obviously, tax is very complicated, and people will pay good money to have good tax advice because it works out for them financially.
But Direen, I every week I listen to Unnatural Selection Bros for my tax advice. Are you telling me you're not going to tell me about any tax loopholes, Adam Direen?
No, mate.
Bros, I'm sure. Were you about to do a racist accent, mate? You fucking racist. You fucking racist. You definitely avoided that trap that I set for you there, you piece of shit.
Yeah, I was going to say, Adam, if you walk right into that
one. Are you allowed to do that yourself?
I am. Italian and Greek. I'm duly credentialed.
Okay, righto. Yep.
All of my cousins sound like this.
Do they?
No, not all of them. Some of them. There's a portion.
Anyway, so just quietly, he's agreed to repay the money. So
good.
He's
That's nice.
Now.
You know, when I steal
the tax return he received after receiving that advice,
when I steal $118,000 from my workplace, I too have to pay it back when caught. I also go to jail in that instance, but that's fine.
He he believes that whilst I believe that I have acted properly and appropriately in this matter, I hold myself to the highest possible standard.
I love the non-apology apology. Whilst I didn't fucking do anything wrong, I'll give the money back, you fucking cunts.
Here's your swords. Do you want to just fall? Here you go. Just
I do
fall
not.
on the sword.
I do not want to fall on my sword.
Fall on the sword, George.
I admit no responsibility, but I'll give the money back for some reason.
Some might call that a moral obligation. Anyway, so that's $118,000.
Damn.
Was it in installments? When you just go, da-da-da, just for like signing it, just a direct deposit off to my accountants from my workplace account for $118,000.
By the way, what accountant charges $118,000 for some advice?
Really?
Not even the return, just a quiet chat about you should definitely carry the one in that.
Have you thought about carrying the one, wink wink, into my bank account? Yeah, no, it's
$118,000.
What is this tax bill? Yeah, what is going on there that is a tax bill of $118,000? What? How? What?
Did they offload it to the Caymans? And
what?
That's their,
How?
Yeah.
You don't understand. This guy's really good. We have very long chats. Extremely long chats. And he charges by the hour. I see where I fucked up.
It is just, I know, because the lead in to this story, Adam, was that it's the watchdog. It's the person who's supposed to be keeping an eye on that people don't do this.
Who watches the watchdog?
Yeah.
It's a delicious irony. But yeah.
Well, in this case, the National Audit Office was watching the watchdog. So there are some people actually that say that the Audit Office should become the federal version of an ICAC. But and that's one of the Liberals' arguments. Is like, well, we've got the National Audit Office. We don't need to have a federal ICAC. Like, why do we need that? We've got the Audit Office. The Audit Office is massively underfunded and actually doesn't have the ability to.
What? They don't fund the people who will put them on tighter leashes money wise.
So they can only look at a couple of cases per year. They can't just look at everything. They haven't got a catch-all filter. They'll take tips which they think are important and they'll follow down particular leads.
Auditing is real hard.
Yeah,
it's a whole job.
So yeah, $118,000. Now, I know you didn't want to cover this, George, but we're going to just touch on it. Just touch on it a little bit.
I don't even want to describe what gesture that was for the listeners.
Touch it.
I missed it. I was opening the article.
Don't worry.
It's for the best.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Great.
Yeah, it's an audio medium. Oh wait, we're being videoed. So basically, there's a national anti-corruption commission, but it's not really anti-corruption commission. It's
pro-corruption.
It's the Australian Commission for Law Enforcement Integrity, but the Age called them that for some reason. But anyway, it's turned out that the head of the Australian Commission for Law Enforcement Integrity, Jaala Hinchcliffe, or we'll just call it Ms. Hinchcliffe, sacked a barrister who made a recommendation to look into suspected corruption in the Australian Border Force, and also ignored a memo laying out a plan to interrogate officials suspected of making tens of millions of dollars in corrupt payments.
So on the Corruptometer, where does that put them in relation to Australia Post?
$20,000. Then go $118,000. Then we're going into tens of millions. So like 4,000%.
I was going to say I'm not going to do the percentage calculation.
So it's over 9,000. It's maximum corruption.
It's maximum corruption. Suspected corruption,
peak,
not proved.
Yes, you're right.
We haven't actually done the investigation.
Alleged peak corruption.
Alleged peak corruption. So this organisation, basically, as they sound, the Australian Commission for Law Enforcement Integrity, they monitor, basically conduct in, border force, federal police, army, all those kind of organisations. They're sort of like a watchdog for that sort of sphere.
Look, before Adam, I sounded disheartened, but maybe this group will restore my faith in public integrity. I haven't read the story, but I'm just assuming from the way you're saying it This is the group that's really gonna reel it back in.
Well, probably not.
Oh.
So the reason. So what happened? The reason why.
So the barrister made a recommendation. I want to question these people as hostile witnesses. Basically, like be aggressive, be aggressive with these,
coercive hearings, which have the power to put people in jail and do other things, right?
Yeah. So it really actually provide some teeth to what would otherwise be a rather toothless inquiry. And they said no. And not only no, but also you're fired.
You're fired, and your assistant is also fired, who also won Lawyer of the Year in New South Wales like a couple of years ago.
Barrister of the Year or something. Yeah, imagine fucking up so hard at work that your assistant gets fired. It's just like, bro, what the fuck? I was just here. I was just chilling. I was getting a coffee. I didn't even get any watches or anything. Like, are you serious, man? Are you fucked up so hard that I get fired? What the fuck?
So they made the barrister made recommended advice to Ms. Hinchcliffe that they should pursue this, and then there was a strong disagreement, and then they went their separate ways. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a whole other layer to this around Christian Porter and, how the government's advice feeds into this, and I'm not going to get into that specifically. But all I wanted to mention was that the reason why they wanted to look into, what they wanted to actually look into, the substance of this, was that Border Force, or the government, if you will, are paying a boat builder, Austal, to build these new patrol boats. $573 million to build the Cape-class patrol boats. And patrol boats are, they're needed.
Is it just me, or does this government just like building big things? They like building big boats. They like building big planes. Mm. They like building big submarines. Mm. They just like vehicles. They're just revheads. They really should go and work for Motor Magazine and do reviews on the latest, Ford Mustang GTX. Like, I think that's what our government's true calling in life really was.
It's a dollar multiplier effect, George.
Mm-hmm.
Jobs and growth.
It multiplies the dollars in my pocket.
This was, I think, one of the Malcolm Turnbull initiatives a while back, but. Basically,
they want to build these boats for the purposes of border security.
Well, yeah, border security. And look, there is a strategic reason for having them. I'm not going to get into that. But the point being is $573 million is the contract with Austal. They're a shipbuilder, I think, in South Australia, Western Australia, or something like that. And there are these alleged payments, right, that are meant to be made to the builder once they hit certain milestones.
Yeah.
And there's about $39 million worth of these milestone payments that are meant to be hit.
To be clear, as someone who's studying project management, a milestone payment, as you correctly pointed out, Adam, is a payment that gets made once certain milestones have been hit. The idea being, as you progress further along across large-scale projects, you want to release key money at strategic opportunities in order to obviously pay the amount outstanding that you owe the person that's conducting the project, as well as potentially with these very large scale projects to actually give them the cash that they would need to then, continue doing the project, right?
Yeah.
So
I think this is more of an incentive payment as opposed to necessarily part of the contractual.
Well, a milestone payment would suggest that something has been completed, when in fact, it seems as though nothing has been completed.
No, the milestones weren't.
We've passed the very important milestone of not having passed a milestone yet. Here is $39 million.
We've passed the milestone of another week gone by.
Mm-hmm.
So $39 million. Now, $39 million is that's the dollar figure we're going with here in our scale of corruption.
Well, it was $31 million, and then there was $8 million. But it's for a contract of a total of whatever it was.
But the $39 million is the amount that we're a bit like, that's shady.
Should that have not been made? Why was that payment made?
So if that's the corrupt figure, if we're going on our metric of the 20,000, sorry, while you guys were talking, I was crunching some numbers.
Thank you, Tom.
I've got this right.
Number crunching. Good on
Lovely
you.
work. I've got a job for you in an audit office that is severely underfunded that I'd like to tell you about.
$20,000. What was that? A 500% increase to the that'd be $120,000, but that's $118,000 that we talked about from the last story, and we're jumping from here to The 39 million, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So if we are using the $20,000 as our starting metric, I believe that is a jump of 195,000%. I think. 20,000 goes into 39 million 1,950 times. So I think it's a 195,000% jump in corruption terms. It's like 1,950 Cartier watch scandals.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to say, how many Cartier watches can I buy for that? That's the real question.
A lot is the answer. You can
Depends
buy a lot of watches.
depends on the tier of watch. If you're getting 7,000 Cartier watches for your entire executive staff, it's fewer than if you go for the Cheryl model of the pithy 3,800.
I mean, the thing is, at least with the watches, you can go, well, Australia Post are still delivering the mail. Do you know what I mean? They're not delivering the mail.
At least they got a watch. You know what I mean? At least they got something for it. Like, yes, the taxpayer paid for the watch, but at least they got a watch at the end of it.
Yeah.
Well, there's that.
Got a watch, and
I just imagine the Cartier boardroom. They're just hearing about all of this. Like, fuck, we should raise our prices. There's so much corrupt money going on. We should definitely be raising the pricing of these watches.
Imagine every watchmaker is like, wait, watches are the sort of shit corrupt people gift each other? Fuck.
Just start cold
numbers up, man.
Cold calling into the fucking, the ASIC and ICAC and all the state government offices be like, hey, it's Bob here from Bob's Watches. I heard you guys, you cunts fucking love watches. I've got a great deal of watches right now.
CEO Samuel Rolex is like, how much do ours go for?
Yeah, hey, it's Bobby Rolex here.
Gotta pump those numbers up.
The best part about this, boys, is that ASIC are actually looking into Austell about a bunch of misleading market announcements between 2015 and 2016.
Yes.
So the corrupt head of ASIC, or was looking into
allegedly corrupt.
Allegedly, sorry.
But he obviously did everything correct, and that's why he has to pay back $118,000. To be clear, he didn't do anything wrong.
So potentially the
definitely not corrupt ASIC is looking into the definitely also not corrupt Austell for not corruption.
So
perfect.
Look,
wonderful.
The thing is that this is
all these contracts are going to be sent back and forth by the definitely not corrupt Australia Post.
Yes. with mail tracking registered post.
He did it, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Heath.
So we can see here that my initial football analogy has now come back around, and we can all rest.
I look forward to next footy season when Geelong can give 195,000% and hopefully bring home the cup.
So the question really is with this last article, it's like, I mean, there might be a legitimate reason why, maybe it's a resourcing issue, why this barrister was fired. They've said that they can't comment about it. But a number of independent sources have said, no, this issue was definitely raised, and there is evidence to pursue this line of questioning. Why aren't we doing it? The Australian Commission for Law Enforcement Integrity, I don't know if they actually issued a response to this article in the Sydney Morning Herald, but and then there's also there's a whole other thread to do with Christian Porter and the government and what his relationship is with the organisation and where some of these orders actually came from. And anyway, like it's a whole lot. But look, these are really important projects. This ship project is, given the whole strategic situation in the Pacific region at the moment, it's really important that these contracts are completed on time and on budget. This is really in the interest of the Australian taxpayer, that if there is any substance to these queries, that it gets looked into.
And we're dealing in amounts that are in, as you say, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars in some instances with large infrastructure projects. Like, it really is, were someone to be a bad actor, it would not be the hardest thing in the world to find areas of a budget like that in order to exploit for one's own political, personal benefit. Like, it's,
and this is a contract that was signed in the Malcolm Turnbull era. Like, imagine all these new budgetary measures that have been announced to stimulate the economy, there's going to be some, as you said, I think a couple of weeks ago, there's going to be some really interesting stories in about 10 years when we have a look back with hindsight as to how these measures were rolled out and implemented and everything else.
I am absolutely certain that, and it's always the case, right, when you announce huge, big budget spending measures in a hurry without the appropriate oversight, you're going to find bad actors that are wanting to, get in there and exploit it to their own personal ends. It's not surprising, but it's certainly predictable, right? These are things that happen in predictable ways whenever there are huge budgets and huge projects. So surely this only strengthens the argument for a federal, not to get all serious about it, but surely a federal ICAC, a Commission Against Corruption, is warranted, especially when we're talking gangbusters numbers for huge new projects that we've never heard of before. If ever there was a time, now is the time.
There's got to be some oversight. I mean, the NBN's another classic example of how that project was just handled horribly. But I had a point. I forgot what it was now. But
you were saying that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that
no, it's gone.
Oh, it's all right.
Sorry.
Fuck it,
we'll do it live. So that's the corruption stuff for this week. Get your
stay tuned for next week's episode of Corruptober. Obviously, we don't know what's going to be coming up just yet, but rest assured there'll be something. The universe provides, Adam. It is the law of attraction. You just will the corruption, and it will come to you.
And speaking of being delivered content. US election is rolling on, and they had the debate the other day.
Yep, the final debate.
Didn't watch it. I don't particularly. I've lost all interest at this point, but I'm sure you guys listened. So
I'm still undecided.
Oh yeah, definitely still undecided. Oh yeah.
Gonna vote for an independent.
I just really think that the Green Party's really going to whip it out this year.
Go ahead, throw your vote away.
So the third debate happened. There were some new rules this time from the Commission on Presidential Debates, or whatever it's called, where they had a situation where the candidate was muted. The other candidate was muted for the first 2 minutes of the other candidate's initial response, and then obviously rules don't matter past that point, and it could just be a total bukkake fuckfest of interruptions and shitting on Joe Biden and taking shots at his son Hunter Biden and all this sort of shit. I think there was a whole big scandal. It was meant to be an October surprise out from the Trump campaign, where some blind computer repairman picked up Hunter Biden's laptop and was going through his emails and saw corrupt emails and reported it to the FBI, and Rudy Giuliani somehow got his hands on it and was spruiking it as evidence of corruption. And just no one really wanted to run this story because it was far right, sort of conspiracy nonsense. Basically, it's completely unfounded as far as I can tell. And major news outlets, even Fox News, refused to run it because it was too batshit for them. But the New York Post obviously didn't have, Murdoch-owned New York Post did not have such compunctions about reporting on it. And and Trump was basically just during the debate was actually talking about stuff that unless you're in the far right ecosphere, news echo chamber thing, you actually wouldn't even know what the fuck he was talking about. Yeah, he was talking about the laptop from hell and AOC +3 and all the, and it was a lot of stuff that if you're trying to convince the general public, if you've got an audience of 40, 50 million people, whatever it is that are watching these debates, you want to communicate in a way to them that they understand, that they can really sort of appreciate. And he was just not doing that. It was just far right, crazy conspiracy dogshit whistles the whole time. And
you can argue he did that pretty effectively, or his campaign did that pretty effectively in the 2016 election, is that they did pitch this idea that Hillary is corrupt, she is the establishment,
sure,
and I am anti-establishment, and they did that really well. And he did that really well, and I think he's just
but this is the thing, is he's trying the same playbook that they did with Hillary, except nobody buys that narrative with Joe Biden. They're corrupt Hillary, and we're going to have the emails come out 8 days before the election or 10 days before the election or whatever. And it's James Comey around about now 4 years ago was announcing his new investigation into Hillary Clinton, which many people believe was the thing that cost her, the election ultimately. But you just don't have that sort of October surprisey kind of moment for the Trump campaign because it's so predictable and like boring and dog shit and obviously false. And it's not like James Comey where it's like meant to be this bastion of centrist moderation and this Cub Scout sort of image that he built around it. So it's coming from Rudy Giuliani, who this week from the new Borat film had a picture come out of him with his hands down his pants. Like, it's not necessarily indicative of anything, but it sort of speaks to a little bit about the quality of the person who's putting forward the information. I think people are like thoroughly quite sick of it by now, and they're like 50 million Americans have already voted at this stage. Like, there's a point of diminishing returns where it's like, even if you were able to come out with some massive October surprise situation, dog shit, throw Biden under the bus thing, like it's mostly too late at this stage. Like,
they're still talking about like, where's the October surprise? It was like Trump caught the Rona at the start of October. That was it. Like, that was the crazy bit.
There's been a advent calendar of October surprises this year. I don't know where everyone's coming up with this. Where was the October surprise thing? It's
the fantastic part. I'm sure someone's done like a super cut of this in the debate. Is that if you ever get, because when I watch the ABC feed here in Australia, it must have been a different feed to what a lot of was being shown in the States. Because in the States, they were often just showed both of them at the same time, like two different squares on the TV and whoever was talking and stuff. Joe Biden's face during most of it was amazing.
Yeah,
because since there was to interrupt each other, Trump would just start saying things and he'd just be like going, like he had no poker face. It was just like, are you fucking what? Talking about?
Yeah.
Or like I'd see him exchange looks with the moderator, being like, "What?
Like, you seeing this guy?
What? What are you talking about?"
Yeah, it's pretty funny. My lovely fiance Gracie happened to catch me watching it, and she goes, "Is someone making memes out of that yet? They should be making memes out of that." I was like, "Yes." Just Joe Biden's like incredulous face of like, "What? Yeah, what is happening? What the fuck is he talking about?"
Yeah.
So apparently they only had to use the mute button once.
See, I never really noticed like anyone get muted, sort of in that sense. But yeah, it was a thing of that you get 2 minutes uninterrupted, answer the question, and then they were allowed to have back and forths with each other. So Trump still got his fair share of time spouting lies and just cutting people off.
Well, here's the thing, Tom. Here's the thing: is that no set of rules could ever make Trump not a cunt.
Yeah, you can't put him in a box, bro.
You can take the cunt out of the boy, but no. How does that go? You know what I'm trying to say.
What?
You can take the boy out of the... No, let's not.
No.
No.
Kill that line.
Shut it down.
Very quickly. Trump did say that he was the least racist person in the room to the person of color moderating.
Since Abraham Lincoln, and maybe even more so than Abraham Lincoln.
Which was an
who freed the slaves.
Claim.
Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. I would like to remind everyone.
I think Alice, my partner, showed me a great clip someone put up, which was Trump saying, "I'm the least racist person in this room," to the person of color moderator, and then it cut to a bunch of black people on a Zoom call, just laughing. They just lost it at that. And I was like, yeah, fair.
I'm so
straws at this point.
Thoroughly done with Donald Trump. Like, I literally cannot bear another 4 years of this at this point. So if you are an American that listens to this show, if you're a Democrat, you remember the election is November 3rd. If you're a Republican, remember it is November 8th. Turnout in force on November 8th. If you are a Republican, if you are a Democrat, vote early, vote often. We can't handle it anymore, guys. We can't.
Only vote once, though, because otherwise that's illegal.
Or multiple times. It's up to you.
Let's not get taken down on Facebook for voter for George like that. They are monitoring.
It's. I literally. You need to vote. You need to vote for Joe Biden. There is a difference. I've seen some commentary online reminiscent of 2016 of like, oh, there's no real difference between them. It's just a classic, they're both corrupt politicians and it's this and it's like the point of dis and misinformation The point of making you feel as though your vote is useless and is worthless and doesn't count for anything and won't contribute in any meaningful way, the point of doing that is to make you disengage with the idea of truth. The fact that there is anything that is true, the fact that there is anything that can be right. And so the point is you disengage from the process. You don't turn up to vote, or you vote for someone that's not in your own best interest. I would encourage you, America, please vote. Vote Democrat up and down the ticket. Please restore things to normal. The world is watching. Now is your last chance to get this right. If you vote him in again, like I can't talk about Trump for another 4 years. Like I will just be done with America at that point. It would just be like, it turns out some fucked up stuff happened in the UK this week. And they'll be like, what? Did you hear that Trump took a shit in Xi Jinping's mouth? And I'll be like, no, we're not talking about it. We're not talking about it.
Some might say we will editorialize it.
We're not talking about, like, if they elect him for a second time. You've done this to yourself, guys. I don't know. There is precedent for it because that's what they did with George Bush. So, like,
do you want to talk
please.
about the how the Latino vote is playing out?
Yeah. So this is something that should be increasingly important this time around because Florida, as always, may fuck this up for everyone again. Wow. And obviously, Latinos not going across to Trump in droves, but they are doing so in substantive enough numbers that it might cost him the state. And because they have this dumb electoral college system, if you win the state, even if it's by one vote, you get all of the electoral votes in the state, which in Florida is a large number. So winning Florida by 51% to 49% would get you all of the votes in Florida. So Florida is a big deal because of how many votes there are.
That's right. It's a battleground.
Battleground state. Yeah, very much so. And the problem is Latino men are like quite conservative and have a, because of President Trump's rhetoric around socialism, particularly in regards to countries like Venezuela and things like that. He has been winning some support in these quarters, despite, I would note, the fact that during his entrance into politics, that when he announced his run for the presidency back in 2015, back where it all started, when this is the date that the time travelers would go to fix all of this, when he's coming down the escalator, to convince him not to run. Adam, relax, and they would ask him very nicely. They can be very persuasive, these time travelers. They know lots of stuff. So. Where was I? Yeah, despite during that initial speech, his entrance into politics, him saying Mexicans were rapists and murderers, he is still garnering a non-zero percentage of the Latino vote. And obviously, Latinos are like any other voters. They have their preferences, they have their concerns and queries, and a lot of them are, quite religious and quite pro-life. And obviously, Amy Coney Barrett, the pro-life conservative judge, is being rammed through at the same time. So this is something that could potentially make the Democrats' lives very difficult if they lose in Florida. So I would just like to, again, this may be like one of the last times we get to talk about this before the election is done. So I just want to say, like, in all seriousness, don't commit voter fraud, but vote. You should go and vote, please. The rest of the world is begging you, America. Please don't let this, like, a handful of groups in a handful of states fuck this up for everyone again, please.
Not again.
Not again. Can't do it again. I can't still be talking about this prick in 2023. Whoa. This can't be the show forever.
I think actually we've got one more episode before the election.
One more. George, what would you like to cleanse your palate of Trump? Would you like to talk about some conspiracy, some spy espionage stuff?
Yeah, give me some spy shit. I love spy shit.
Give you some spy shit? Okay. How about, what's it called? Havana syndrome.
Cool. We were talking about socialists in South America. So yeah, let's go to the Havana syndrome.
So we talked about this briefly on the podcast, like, years ago. And this is the kind of shit that, like, spy fiction writers write about. Like, it doesn't sound real. And to some extent, what I'm about to go through isn't necessarily proven to be 100% real. No one's actually said, here is the Havana device. and said this is what it does. It's all sort of
it's suspicion and reporting at this stage.
Yes.
Nothing's necessarily been like confirmed or verified, but it seems more than likely that this is the case.
So the reason why this is in the news is basically, and the reason why it's called Havana syndrome is there were reports back in, I think, 2016 or something like that, 2017, where in the employees of the embassy, in the US embassy in Havana, they all started suffering from, multiple people started suffering from the same weird symptoms of nausea, ears ringing, pressure related, like as if you've got your inner ear,
like a loud noise,
out of whack, loud noises, pressure in their heads, these kind of symptoms.
Some of which actually led to like permanent brain damage and stuff as well. Like there's a real, it's an observable actual thing that exists in the world. It's not just like these people are crazy. Like it's had physical effects on these people.
The symptoms are real, and the effects of these people are real, and it's happened not just in Havana, but in other US officials have been targeted around the world at various points, including recently in Australia. So 2 high-ranking CIA agents were attacked last year while visiting Australia in their hotel room, allegedly.
Just on holiday or just curious?
No,
just wondering.
Here. They're obviously doing some spy shit.
Just curious. Just wondering what's going on.
Here on business. And yeah, I guess it's a what people are reporting on it. It's basically saying it's an attack on Australian soil of US personnel. Now, everyone's been sort of trying to work out what actually has caused this, and there are a number of theories. One is that it's a microwave weapon. Another one is that it's a sound or acoustic weapon.
Yeah, subsonic weapon.
The other concept is it's just pesticides, which probably seems more likely in some ways. So,
well, one of the stories I heard from 2017 situation was there was was it from that one? Yeah, I think it was, where one of the American diplomats described being in their room, being in bed, feeling the sensation come on, hearing these sounds, getting out of bed, moving a few feet away, everything's fine, getting back into bed, and then experiencing the same symptoms. So it's like, it seems as though it's like highly directional.
Yeah.
This, whatever, if it's a sound weapon or a microwave weapon or whatever it is something that can actually be deployed in a way that's like quite localized, rather than it just being like pesticide that we just sprinkle some crack around the room. Like, it doesn't seem like that, because then there'd be evidence of poisoning or that sort of stuff, which there hasn't been anything that I've seen that would indicate that it's that.
Definitely. But the other thing is, like, in terms of how you would have to build this device, it would have to be the size of, in terms of the amount of, if it's a not a microwave one, but a what do they call it? Sound device.
Yeah.
It would have to be like, it's not something you can whip out of your pocket. It'd have to be the size of, you put it on the back of a truck or something, like, and point it somewhere. It has to have a power source to run it.
Unless there's been some massive development in technology that the West is as yet unaware of, which may be the case. It may be that it's like a little squirt gun size thing now that this can be deployed. The question is why though? Like, why harass? I guess from the perspective of Russian operatives, that's who it's suspected to be, is Russian or so, some sort of, socialist backed thing. That this might have been done in Havana in 2017, maybe even without the backing of the government there. This might have been done like with their knowledge, but like potentially without their knowledge or despite them, to try and break off the relationship between Cuba and the United States, which was at that time just opening up again. Yeah. And as a result of these actions, basically the United States closed down their embassy in Cuba and pulled out. And so it did actually affect the diplomatic sort of relationship there. Like, it was a direct part of that. So it could be that, maybe they're just, Russians are trying to destabilize stuff generally, or just harassing American intelligence generally. It seems like
if it disrupts operations or ongoing diplomatic efforts, then I guess from a Russian perspective, if it is Russia, it's a it's successful because it's making whatever they're there to do harder, and potentially to fail. The reason why they particularly think it's Russians in Australia is according to America's GQ magazine, so take it with a grain of salt. Mobile phone data revealed agents of Moscow's Federal Security Service, or the FSB, were in the vicinity of the CIA agent's hotel room at the time they fell ill.
Don't shit all over this GQ investigation. This is quite in depth. From what I understand, this has been a months long inquiry into this process. I know it's GQ and they tell you what ties to wear, but also they did some good reporting on this.
Yeah.
I understand David Beckham looks very sexy still, but also there's some good reporting there as well.
Of course, the theory that no one's gone with yet is that it could be aliens. I'm just going to put that one out there. It's not backed up or anything.
Yeah,
verified.
Completely baseless, some might say.
But just think about it, guys. Aliens.
The truth is out there. And the truth is, it was not aliens. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web at unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that are ruining the world, that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and motherfucking TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me on Instagram at ASIC Chair.
And you can follow me down to the embassy in Havana, where we'll be pressing our ears up against the walls, our ears, not our rears, up against the walls to find out the source of that. You guys are looking at me very suspect. I'm not going to push my asshole up against the wall. Relax. We're going to find the source of these strange noises or microwaves, whatever it is. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. I'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Incidentally, great time to go for a trip because, cigars, there's other stuff in Havana. Let's go to Cuba.
Speaking of buttholes, thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.
You just called me a butthole.
No.